Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, there we go. Hello. Oh, the start time. Sorry, I didn't reply to your email because I'm speaking very fast. My apologies. I saw your email. I didn't reply to it yet though, just because I was getting ready for this. It starts at 7 p.m. on the 18th. So it's from 7 to 10 p.m. on the 17th, so at nighttime. No problem.
Diyonga. Sanga yedo. Kono na yani sena ni nyara ni nukuza kudoa madila.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our class. So today we're looking at choosing a learning theory. So this is the end of kind of our module on learning theories. We've went through 6 learning theories that are relevant or important to adult education. And as this is made for people who are teaching university students or young adults, we focused on learning theories that are the most important for working with or teaching adults. Okay. So today is a little bit of a review class. We're going to be kind of looking at all the different theories we've went over and kind of looking at how you can use them in different situations. So our objective is that participants will be able to evaluate each learning theory and choose learning theories to match class activities. So community guidelines. We are happy you are here. If you are late or have technical issues, please join the conversation as you are able. Mute yourself when you are not talking, but please remember to unmute yourself when you do want to talk. We want to be able to hear everyone. Please complete the pre-session self-paced slides, and those are sent out on Facebook, email, and in the Google Classroom, and the post-session feedback forms. This will help us revise and develop course content. I do read all of the feedback, and if there's anything that needs replied to, I do reply to it. Obviously, we can't adjust based on everything, but I do try and reply, and I do take everything that's mentioned into account. If you have questions or technical issues during the session, please send a message in the chat box indicating so, or email us at info@hettgroup.com. Okay, so my name is Lisa. I will be kind of facilitating this training or class. So I was previously in Myanmar, as you can see from my picture. That was at Calais, or TU Calais. And I've taught English, I've taught environmental education, I've done teacher training, that type of thing. And my co-host is Kathleen, and she creates all the slides. So Kathleen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Kathleen Griley. Like Lisa said, I help do the slides for these trainings. I also have experience with teacher training, and I currently teach English and Spanish in the US.
Okay. So how well do you understand learning theories? Not at all, a little bit, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. So use your fingers to kind of show me, or if you can't, you can type a number in the chat box. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. So how well do you understand? Okay, let me look at people. I see a 2. Let me check the chat. 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, so you're getting there. If you've attended some of the classes. So what are some of the learning theories we have discussed so far?
Andragogy.
Andragogy, yes, definitely. Adult learning, andragogy. What else have we discussed?
Transformative.
Yes, transformative learning. Yes. What else? Behaviorism. Yes. Transformative learning. Yes. Cognitivism. Yes. What else?
Constructivism.
Which one? Sorry? Constructivism? Yes. There was one more that I don't think was mentioned. Experiential learning. Yes. Excellent. Okay. So we're going to review them. We'll try and go through this quite quickly. You can say it out loud or in the chat box. What is behaviorism?
After awareness, changes in behavior.
Yeah. Yes. So it's like stimulus, response, stimulus, response. People are blank slates, like nothing there, just stimulus, response, stimulus, response. People act because of their environment. What are some positives or pros of behaviorism?
Change behavior.
Yeah, it might change the behavior. It helps with like rote memorization or repetition, things that you kind of just have to do automatically. Yes, yeah, helps with rote learning. Things that you need to be able to do automatically. What are some negatives or cons of behaviorism?
After imitate bad person, the learner or a person become bad manners, bad behavior.
I mean, it could be if the person doing it originally had bad behavior, if they were trying to teach them to be negative. Yeah, I mean, but I think any learning theory could be immoral. It's more that, yeah, so it could be, yeah, maybe they don't think about it. So if they're taught something that's negative, I could see that because it doesn't include critical thinking. So yeah, it does not support critical thinking or creativity. So you just copy, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, if the person you're copying isn't moral, then maybe it ends up in immoral behavior. Yeah, and it doesn't consider that students are unique individuals. They don't all learn in the same way. So behaviorism kind of assumes everyone learns the same. Well, it's not really about behavior issues. It's more just about how you learn. Yeah. Okay. What is cognitism?
Memorize some things. Childhood memory.
Yes. So it focuses on what's happening inside the brain. So it views learning as a complex mental task. So it's more complex than behaviorism. Behavior is just, you know, kind of like copy and do, but cognitivism is about in the brain, and the students participate actively, and this people are like computers. So it's about inside the brain. What are some pros or positives of cognitivism?
Some knowledge must be memorized. So cognitivism is important for childhood behavior.
Yes.
Childhood knowledge. How
Definitely.
to eat, how to walk.
Yeah, so some things need to be kind of memorized. So teaches students how to think, great for memorization and knowledge acquisition. So just gaining knowledge, it's quite useful for. And we all, especially when we're children, we need to gain knowledge. So it's very important. What are some negatives or cons of cognitivism?
I think it can reduce imagination or innovation.
Yeah, it doesn't really focus on imagination or anything. So yeah, like it kind of deals with people as if they're computers, but people aren't computers. It doesn't really consider emotions or external circumstances. It doesn't think about ethics. It doesn't think about morals. It's more just so directly observe is actually more behaviorism, because this is more in your head. So you can maybe observe it a little bit, but behaviorism you can really observe. Okay, next one. What is constructivism?
It can be fulfilled for skill.
Yeah. So individuals construct meaning on a foundation of what they already know. So maybe you know this, and then you add this, and you add this, and you add this, and you add this, and you add, and you add, and you add. So that's kind of constructivism. So learning takes place in a community. So it's not just me in my head. I learn from my teacher. I learn from my peers, the other students. I learn from my family. You know, I learn from my friends. The teacher helps students do things they would not otherwise be able to do. So the teacher kind of facilitates the learning and supports them in their learning. What are some positives or pros of constructivism?
Build experience, competency.
Yeah, builds experience and competency, recognizes individuals' strengths and experiences. So it builds interpersonal skills. So you're talking about community. You learn from each other. So that's interpersonal skills. It provides students with support from the teacher as they learn. Yeah, so yes, definitely interpersonal skills. Okay, what are some cons or negatives of constructivism?
Can reduce.
Sorry? So sometimes it gets so much into like everything else that it forgets or does not recognize the value of memorization. So it gets too much into maybe like the critical thinking and things like that. And it forgets that sometimes you just do need to memorize. Some things you learn just have to be memorized. And sometimes it gets too into like everyone has their own opinion, everyone has their own truth. So
Argument between peers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it loses its kind of concrete reality, kind of loses touch with reality a little bit. Okay. What is experiential learning?
Learning by doing.
Yes. Yes. Learning by doing. So students participate in an activity, students reflect on and conceptualize what they learn, and students, apply learning to real life. So how can you actually learn this in real life? What are some pros or positives of experiential learning?
Can be fulfill the skill of each subjects or profession.
Yeah. So practical skills are learned. Sometimes if you're just learning, like hearing about how to do something, you don't learn it. But it's if you do it, you learn it better. You know how to do it. Participants create meaning based on their own experiences. And learning transfers to real life. What are some cons of experiential learning or negatives?
It can be limited because in our country, teaching aids or teaching facilities are limited in some schools. So experimental learning difficult to other schools, or and how can I say, village school or others can be limited facility. Experimental learning, I think experimental learning needs teaching aids or teaching facilities.
Yeah. I mean,
Practical skill.
I don't know, like, I would say yes and no. Like, I agree that there might be a lack of like support. Like, it's probably harder maybe to set up an internship in some places in Myanmar, which would be an example experiential learning. But I've also heard of things like, say, environmental experiential learning or community-based, like environmental experiential learning and things like that. So people go out into their own communities to learn. So maybe they go out and they talk to the head of the community, or they go out and into the forest or the jungle near their community to go and learn. So there is examples in small communities without lots of resources where you just use what's there. But very formal experiential learning, like doing an internship or a practicum, wouldn't be possible in a small community without resources. And yeah, it is time consuming, I think, to plan it, to figure it out, to offer it. It takes a lot of it can take a lot of work depending on the type of experiential learning. And also there's the experiential learning cycle, and sometimes you don't need to follow all of the steps. So they kind of differentiate between, there's experiential education and experiential learning. And a lot of times when they talk about experiential learning, they mean the learning cycle. And experiential education just means like a little bit more general. So education that's based on experience.
I want to add one cause. Cultural barrier in our country. I think most of the parents, they cannot permit their child to go outside the school. This is our culture.
I could see
Most of
that.
the parents, even
Yeah.
adult, they cannot permit their children to go outside the school.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, I could see that. And that is definitely a limitation. Yeah, if the students cannot leave the school ground, it's a lot harder to do experiential learning. And here it says they don't learn how to learn, students address how students learn in a community. Although again, on the other side, you can do experiential learning in a community. So one way that I have done I think it included experiential learning, was working with along the Thai-Myanmar border. It was actually built into the curriculum, although it was old by that point, that the program was supposed to be based on experiential learning, or aspects of it were. So the students were supposed to, the students are supposed to cook the food. So even having students cook their food, that's experiential learning. They were supposed to have a garden, that's experiential learning. They were supposed to volunteer. So volunteering can be seen as experiential learning. Service learning, but service learning is a part of experiential learning. But yeah, if you can't leave the school, that's all quite difficult. What is andragogy?
Adult learning.
Yes, adult learning. So theory of teaching adults based on adults' real life experiences, and sees adult learners as more independent. Okay, what are some pros or positives of andragogy?
Enhance innovation, imagination, and practical work.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Enhance professionalism.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's student-centered, good. Yeah, and it values, so it values experience. So it's looking at what the student as an adult already knows or has knowledge about or experience with, and builds on that. And it focuses a lot on practical knowledge and skills, like what will actually be used. And yes, it's student-focused and student-centered. So it's focused on the learner. What are some cons or negatives of andragogy? Or at least the theory of andragogy?
Because of student center, main topic can be lead to other topics when discussing.
Yeah, it might be a little bit too open. I would say it's probably falls under constructivism. I think like andragogy probably falls, like experiential learning and andragogy and transformative learning, I would say all fall under constructivism. And I would say that's kind of a criticism of constructivism, is it's sometimes too broad and too maybe student-centered. One thing is that it tries sometimes to differentiate how adults learn from how children learn. And sometimes there isn't a huge difference, like there's more overlap. And it's trying to talk about how they're different, but they're not always different. Especially if you're dealing with university students, a lot of university students aren't fully adults in a lot of ways. Like they still kind of think like, not like children, but a little bit more like children than someone that might be in their 40s or 50s. Like they've never really worked, or maybe not worked full time. So some of the ideas around andragogy don't always fit university students, because they don't always think like that, or they're kind of in the middle. What is transformative learning?
Change.
Yeah, so change the way you think. New learning causes a major change in how students view the world. And I've had a few moments like this myself, where I was learning something and it was like, oh, wow, that changed things for me a lot. Students learn and reflect on new information, and students seek new knowledge and take on new roles. So what are some pros of transformative learning?
New knowledge can be accepted, can be gained.
Yeah, so it's very like, yeah, so you do get new knowledge, and if it's done properly, then the student should really be reflecting on that knowledge and growing from it. And then because it's kind of, yeah, it's very student-centered. It's very much the students are active learners. It's about how they're changing the way they view things. And it's very unique to each person, because how each person changes or perceives situation is different, or when they do is different. What are some cons or negatives?
Student background knowledge is variable, so changing can be variable.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So if they have different background knowledge, then when they get new knowledge, it might change some people, it might not change others. The way that they're changed by that knowledge might be different as well. So also, it can be difficult for the teacher to try and force transformative learning. Like you can do things to make students more likely to have those moments, but you can't like force someone to like transform their thinking. That's not possible as a teacher. So you're more maybe facilitating to try and get the students to have those moments. It's also very time consuming to try and support that in your classroom, to try and support transformative learning. And it does not consider familial and societal pressures to stay the same. So it's all about change, but it's kind of ignoring that sometimes there's a lot of pressure not to change. And I think things are maybe getting better in Myanmar, but I think historically there was a lot of pressure not to change your thinking, not to question your thinking. So, okay. So each learning theory obviously has its pros and its cons. So each can be used for different aspects of teaching. So there's not like one good and one bad. It's that you can use this for this, this for this, this for this, and this for this, and this for this. So you can use them in different ways. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a poll. There will be an example activity, and choose the learning theory that would best fit with that activity. And I'll give you 1 minute to answer. Okay. So groups of students in physics class each research a different Newtonian principle. Then they must teach their classmates about the principle they researched. So you have 1 minute to answer. Well, about 35 seconds now. Four, three, two, one. Okay, so it is constructivism. They're kind of building on their knowledge and they're working together. So constructivism is very much about working together and working with each other. and building on knowledge. So that's why it's constructivism. Okay, next one. Students in the engineering program must complete an internship during their summer break. So which of the 6 learning theories is this? Behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, andragogy, experiential learning, or transformative learning? Four, three, two, one. Okay. Yes. So this is experiential learning. An internship is an experience. They're learning by doing. So they're going out into the workforce and learning by doing. After hearing about the downsides of burning coal for energy, Windmint realizes he was wrong in his thinking that coal was the best way to power the country. So he thought one thing and then his thinking changed. I had this about hydroelectricity. Not that I think hydroelectricity is bad, but in Canada, hydroelectricity is usually seen as quite good. But when I was in Thailand and Myanmar, I started to learn about all the issues around the dams and how it affects the wildlife and the people in Southeast Asia because of all these dams for hydroelectricity. And I had never considered any of the negatives before. Okay. So yes, transformative learning is a total switch and change in thinking. When Professor Than U wants his students to listen, he puts his hand up in the air. The students automatically quiet down. I've seen this with like a bell, like ding, ding, ding. And when teaching children, I would do, or this one with children. I did this more with children than with adults. Okay. Yes, it is behaviorism. So it's like an automatic response. Especially this one, the like, and then you get the children to repeat it again with children, not adults. It just becomes automatic. They do it without thinking. Students in the advanced English class learn to pre-plan their essays using a graphic organizer. What is this? Behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, andragogy, experiential learning, or transformative learning? Okay. So yes, it is cognitivism. It's like kind of learning how to learn in there, in your head, like a computer. A computer kind of sorts things like a graphic organizer. When teaching adults, the ethics professor always asks about their personal experiences with the issues discussed in class. Which learning theory would best support this activity? So behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, andragogy, experiential learning, or transformative learning.
Andragogy.
Three, two, one. Andragogy, yes. So it's about past experience. So if you're dealing with adults, they might have past experience to draw on. Okay, how much time do we have? I might just do this in groups because we don't have a huge amount of time. So in groups, I want you to choose one learning theory and then think of one activity that you could do with that learning, with that. Trying to close out of my slides. I'll have to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. Now I can go back. So choose one learning theory and use Pear Deck to write down an activity that illustrates that learning theory, like here. So an activity that matches with that learning theory. And I'll show you not an example, but. Okay. So you can choose a learning theory, let's say experiential learning. And then in the space below, write down an activity that you would do with your students that follows your chosen learning theory. Experiential learning, having the students work together to complete a research project in their community. So maybe there's a need to clean out, a need to analyze the water that goes through the town or community and how safe is it to drink. So maybe that could be an example of experiential learning. They're going to go out and test the water. When I did environmental education, that was mostly experiential learning. We would go and we would take the students out on the river. We would take them up the mountains. And then we would do activities with them outside. So it was outdoor experiential learning. And then You can discuss about the learning theory you chose, why you chose it, what is the activity you chose, and how is that activity related to your chosen learning theory. So I'll give you about 10 minutes in your groups to do that. I'll just create one group outside of the main group. We don't have very many people today. Oh, my apologies. I have to give you the link. There's the link for the Pear Deck. So just work together. Okay, Kathleen, would you like to put the music on?
Only 3 participants.
Okay. So for the group, which learning theory did you choose and what activity did you choose? Anyone?
My group is this teacher. I'm
Yeah.
grouping with teacher.
Yeah, you see. I don't know who wrote it down, but I saw that someone wrote storytelling. Who wrote storytelling? Okay. Might be I mean, it's good activity. If you were, what would it work with? Which learning theory would storytelling be? Maybe, I don't know, maybe, oh, there we go. I mean, yeah, it could be andragogy. I was thinking maybe more constructivism, but maybe andragogy, because you could have adults telling stories about their own experiences or something like that. Then that could be a way that it was andragogy. Yeah. How about, so who is this? So constructivism.
This is me.
Okay, yeah.
Constructivism.
So yeah.
I choose the method of team-based learning.
Yeah.
Team-based learning enhance organization skill, management skill, mutual respect. I choose team-based learning because teamwork is important in medical profession. I'm from medical school. So in medical profession, teamwork is important. Mutual respect is very important. So team-based learning is useful in our university.
I think that makes sense. Yes.
From team-based learning, you can get many knowledge from each other. They can learn from each other.
Yeah.
From teachers. Team-based learning has 3 portions. The first one is individual readiness test. This is assess the prior knowledge. The second one, after deliver the lecture by teachers, and team readiness test, individual readiness test, team readiness test. Teacher give short questions. After that, application may be reflected writing or concept map or something like that about the lecture. The reflection or conceptualization of their knowledge with teams presentation.
Definitely.
So constructivism by means of team-based learning I like it.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. It's a good example. I mean, it's good. Team-based learning is very useful and it's definitely a part of constructivism. Okay, excellent. Okay. So which learning theory would best support the classes you teach, and how will you apply it?
Every learning theory is good. They have pros and cons. So we must choose the learning theory to available lesson plan.
Yeah.
Variable types of lesson, variable objective. So we must choose learning theory, maybe changeable. I think like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Anyone else want to add to it? Camera's off and they're muted, so okay. How well do you understand learning theories? You can even either show of fingers or you can type it in the chat box. So not at all, a little bit, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. How well do you understand? Okay, 4, 5. What does the chat box say? Now I can't see the chat box. Just 1 second. 4, quite well. Okay, excellent. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to be sending out an email later today for me, probably tomorrow morning for you. I need to go have a nap because this is very early for me. And I will, in that email, it will have the course feedback form and invitation to join the Google Classroom. In the Google Classroom, we have links to, or we have all of the slides and everything, and you can download them into PowerPoint from the Google Classroom if you would like. If there's any missing, please just let me know and I can send them to you. Next week, we are going to be switching. So this module was on learning theories. We are going to be switching starting next week, and we're going to be focusing on goals. And we're going to start off by looking at outcome-based education. So what is outcome-based education and how can you apply outcome-based education? And then we're going to get a bit more in depth into that. If you want to see our syllabus outline, which might change, but rough draft, you can see it in the Google Classroom, or if you click on the link from the slides in the Google Classroom, you can find it as well. Okay, that is everything. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, but otherwise, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.